Good evening, folks. The last time we spoke, we talked about what you need to know about the pre-alpha live stream that began on the 11th for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today we'll be breaking down the 10 burning questions that took place during the live stream and the comparison footage shown at the end, which gives us an idea of what the pre-alpha will look like from the 2021 test to 2022. The stream itself was about 45 minutes and featured both senior content creator Ronik and another content creator known as Minus. It starts off with 10 burning questions and a bonus one that gets answered by the both of them. The first, which is also the bonus, is when will the next pre-alpha happen? Their response is that they don't currently have a set date, but they are sticking to the commitment to have it start sometime in September. Right now there's a lot to test out, so they don't have an exact date that they're willing to share. They're working on both new servers and systems, along with the networking system they're implementing, so they have a lot on their plate at the moment, but will give us a date as soon as they can. Following this, we have the first official burning question: what changes can we expect to see in Thronefast when we start our characters there? For those who have never heard of this region before, the city of Thronefast has been the crowning jewel of the human race for nearly 500 years in the game's world. This capital is located in the northeastern region of Kingsreach and is the central area of the Avendir region. In response to the question, the developers state that in this upcoming testing phase, there have been a multitude of things that have changed in comparison to the test done in 2021. Some of the classes are going to have revamped starting areas or entirely different areas that you have to get accustomed to, and the overall environment of the game's world has been vastly updated. There's a lot more to explore, climb, conquer, and another aspect that will be included is the day-night cycle, to which both of them comment that combining the day-night cycle and the weather effect system is going to make Pantheon feel like a whole new game. In Thronefast, they have also reworked the enemies quite a bit and changed up the enemy placement, power level of enemies, the abilities they have. There will be a familiar feeling there, but there's still going to be a much different experience starting in Thronefast altogether. For the next question, what can we expect from the crafting and gathering in the upcoming test? At this moment, they're still in the process of implementing parts of the crafting UI and the underlying system for both the crafting and gathering systems, so these systems might be ones like we talked about in the previous guide video, like how certain resources might give us buffs and debuffs when we gather from them, and the fact that we'll have a chance of gaining extra rare materials when gathering. Or on the crafting side, how we might experience critical successes or failures when refining. But that being said, we'll still be able to mine from ore nodes out in the world and uncover their riches. We'll also be able to smelt this ore down into metal so that we can get a feel for how the refinement works in the crafting process. There's a lot more they hope to enable and test soon, but in the meantime, they hope that we'll all enjoy exploring Thronefast and discovering some of the raw materials that'll be useful to us as crafters. For the third question, will the weapon techniques that have been introduced in a previous newsletter alongside the monk gameplay video be a part of the pre-alpha session? How early can we see these come into play, and how does a player learn these techniques? And they say the weapon techniques will be available in this upcoming pre-alpha session, although you probably won't experience every technique that will be available. They're still implementing some things and making adjustments, but it's important to note that the melee classes are going to have a much better experience than the casters when it comes to weapon techniques. If you're unfamiliar with these, in the April newsletter, the weapon techniques were revealed as a new addition to Pantheon's ability structure. Previously, the majority of attacks available to a class were the same regardless of what weapon they had equipped, but now Pantheon is deciding to distinguish between core class abilities and weapon-based attacks. And although this means that each class will have its core suite of abilities to add to the limited action set, the majority of weapon-centric abilities that take place on the LAS will differ based on the type of weapon the player is wielding. I feel like an amazing example for this would be Guild Wars 2. If you ever played that game, you may have noticed how your character has access to 2 weapon slots with about 5 weapon skills on each. The 1 through 5 abilities are primarily based on your currently equipped weapon, but also the class you're using. As a Mesmer, for example, you'll notice that the Greatsword will grant you access to vastly different abilities than if you were using a staff. And this is the type of combat system that Pantheon hopes to employ from what I was able to gather, which seems like an incredibly smart thing to do since they're planning to stick to the limited action set. And unlike the core abilities learned by increasing your class level, new techniques are acquired by improving your skill with the corresponding weapon type. And although it is mentioned that some standard techniques will be shared by all classes capable of wielding the appropriate weapon or classes of a similar archetype, many more advanced abilities will still remain class specific. They next talk about how techniques will be starting at level 1. Upon stepping into the world and depending on what weapon we decide to use with our characters, we're automatically going to have weapon techniques. And most of these techniques through the journey will actually be automatically learned as we level up in this particular weapon. But that being said, there are some specialized techniques that might need to be purchased from the class trainers as well. For the fourth question, we dig into the patch notes. The exact question is what structure is in place right now to communicate/organize patch notes during a session. Ronick comments on this by stating that prior to the start of the pre-alpha session, the design team will engage the pre-alpha testing forums with overall notes about the current builds that we as testers will experience. This can encompass work done to quests in various systems, but also provide some updates on each class and what to expect. This will talk of changes to abilities, perhaps abilities that were newly added, or include known bugs that the testers might experience but may not need to report. When in the game world, you have access to a bug reporting system along with an open channel in the Discord to openly talk about the experiences we're having as well as reach out for questions. After the session, we'll also be typing up recap posts on the pre-alpha forums detailing our journey. The next question is, what are the main items in this upcoming test that VR is looking for feedback and testing on? The response is that when they do open the game up to their testers, they often give out a sort of guide that shows what they're looking for feedback on. They want to give a heads up to everyone and say that they're looking for feedback across a variety of topics. These include combat updates, pacing, downtime, difficulty, the experience gain, since that's going to change a lot for testing, and of course with Vinyl being a huge part of driving the new test, there's going to be bugs around stability, performance, that sort of thing. And while they have specific things they want feedback on, you can still wrap up the experience you had. They still want to hear about what the full experience was, but while we're in these testing phases, there will be some subjects that they're really hoping people will tackle. For the next question, the user wanted to know what is some of the feedback they have received from testers that has pushed development in the direction that they weren't necessarily expecting. In their May Developer Roundtable, they discussed changes to balance to enable more solo ability, while being sure that they are still promoting and rewarding group content, which is the main focus of the game. This is largely influenced by testers' experiences and sometimes their frustrations. While the game had potential to be incredibly fun in groups, it was difficult during tests to make any meaningful progress if they were unable to find one. They wanted to give players more opportunities to stay engaged in the game in these situations while simultaneously ensuring the group experience was still sought after and remains a premier method of play. And somewhat related to this, they were also receiving feedback on the emphasis of itemization as the primary source of character power. So part of their updates to combat included not only revamping how stats and attributes affect the outcome, but also providing players with attribute increases as they level. This makes sure that power doesn't just come from itemization, but also character growth to balance that out. Something I want to add on to this point is not only is it a good thing, especially in this day and age, to have a decent amount of soloable content alongside group-based, but one thing I noticed from recently jumping into EverQuest 2 progression servers, for example, is that there's another quality of life feature that doesn't really shine as much as it used to. And for me, that was the mentor system. In EverQuest 2, the mentor system allows you to temporarily lower your character's adventure level to match that of another player you join a party with or by self-mentoring. This means that you lower your player level down to theirs so that they don't lose out on experience. This system is utilized when you want to assist players like with a low-level dungeon or a difficult quest, for example, and you'll also be able to benefit from grayed out content since name mobs don't drop their intended treasure if they were at gray status for you. So there's many benefits to having a system like this, including the fact that it can help to keep early game dungeons alive. Another thing that can assist with this is something I know I've seen at least one other MMORPG employ, but can't remember which. Probably ESO regular dungeons or WoW time walking events, but allowing us to potentially take daily or weekly quest lines when we get to end game that require us to mentor down and complete a dungeon fully with a low level player. Something like that would very much strengthen the symbiotic relationship between players and make it so you have an even bigger reason to utilize systems like this. On the next question, the players ask, can we get an update on character models and what this means for future race implementations? With the recent art hires, they're in the process of bringing all the character models up to a modern standard. Because of this, they've established a new character-like pipeline that will result in aesthetic improvements as well as efficiency gains in bringing the remaining races online. And they announced at this part that as part of the stream, they've completed a redo on their human male model. They aren't sure if we'll see this in the pre-alpha phase, but they are expecting the human female model to be completed this month. So for both of these models with the new rigs and the new builds, they're going to make for an easier baseline to move forward to correct and improve all the other races. They state that this is a massive step for them in improving their animation, so they're really excited about this. Next question. Are there any rare named enemies featured in this playtest for us to discover? Their response to this is that they don't want to give too much away, but they have added some rare spawns to the world. All of these additions will have their own itemization, with some of these spawns being more rare than others, so they're going to be watching to see if testers can manage to find them all. So the next question, which they state they'll be spending a little bit of time on, are banks or vaults ready for testing in the new testing session? Overall, there's a large amount of new systems that are going to be in the next tests. Banking will be one of them, the new death penalty being another, which was revealed in one of the previous producer letters, some new skills and abilities, crafting and harvesting changes, the sprinting feature, which can be viewed in the Monk gameplay video they showcased, the day-night cycle, of course, which will cause all of us as players to seriously value our torches, the weather system, which the team has been incredibly impressed with so far, and more. And for the last question, do any members of the Visionary Realm team plan on joining the pre-alpha sessions, and if so, will they join as the names we know them by or go incognito? To quickly summarize this answer, they go on to say that in the past they have done this exact thing, and the team as a whole may do so again in the future or might volunteer for GM work, so it's completely possible that you could see them in game with the names they're known by. So overall, that's it for the burning questions of this live stream. They do follow this up by doing a deeper dive into the classes that will be available for pre-alpha and the updates they've made to their skills, but this is something I'd like to save for another series of videos where I plan to look into each class in more detail. In the meantime, they finish off the live stream with a showcase of some comparison footage for what testers can expect from the upcoming pre-alpha test in contrast to what 2021 testers experienced. I'll go ahead and play the footage for our last section of this video, but thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this live stream and have a wonderful night or day.
Just